Welcome to the Velo podcast. I am not Mike, as you can tell because of the way I am. I'm Logan Jones-Wilkins, tech editor at Velo. Mike is gone. Josh is gone. It's just myself and, of course, Lisa. Lisa, how are you doing today? It's just us. What are we going to even talk about?
The wildlings have taken over the pod. Pray for us all, people.
Lisa, how are you been? How are things going this week?
Good. Yeah, cruising along. I'm not going to lie. I'm getting ready for my baby's first press camp. So I'm very excited, very nervous, trying to figure out all the things. So all the tips, you can tell me what I'm supposed to be doing.
Press camps are a lot.
Yeah.
Ask lots of questions.
No,
Definitely. Don't be scared of a tough question. They like a tough question sometimes.
There we go.
If you ask it to the right people. Ask the product people the tough questions. Maybe ask the marketing people the other questions.
Yeah.
That's kind of what I would recommend. That's a look behind the curtain.
Nice.
For us here at Velo. But
my biggest question is when is lunch? When is coffee?
When is coffee?
Are you feeding us?
Very good questions.
What about you? What you been up to? Are you come down post Unbound? Are you recovered? How's the bike? All of this.
I am. So big day for me today. Today was the first time my watch said that my 7-day sleep average was over 8 hours in 2 months. This is the first time that's happened in 2 months. And
Amazing.
I needed a nice deep refresh. So feeling back after a very hectic Unbound week, took a little trip to San Diego, did some riding, which was nice, very much needed because it doesn't stop for me. It doesn't stop for me. We just keep going here at Velo. There's more stuff. It's our high season, which is great, but it's also a lot.
Yeah.
But yeah, Lisa, you haven't been with us since Unbound. Do you have any questions for me? Anything that we missed during our coverage? Any observations you had as a non-racer,
yes,
but long haul rider, if you will?
Yeah. I mean, I'm so curious about what happens after? I saw these people just sitting around, shells of a human, but is there a giant bike wash station? Is someone there to give you a hug? I don't know. It just looked insane.
I'm glad you asked. Yes to all of that. So one of the craziest things this year with the mud was the line for the bike wash station.
Oh,
so
wow.
Muck Off provides the bike wash, and they have got 6 hoses. And the line snakes all the way down Main Street. And it was this way from when the 50s started rolling in at probably, I want to say they probably started rolling in about 10 o'clock all the way through into the night. And the queue was there all the time. And the pros, they would have their own bike washes. The mechanics would do that for them. Or if they weren't lucky enough to have a mechanic, they would do it either that night or the next day. So the bike washing was, there was a long queue. A lot of people would sit around for a while with dirty faces.
Yeah.
The pro tent was pretty awesome because you just have all these different people with different sponsors who have been just battling it out for hours, just sitting, decompressing together, wiping the mud off their face. The amount of mud that was on the pros was truly incredible. The photos I got, I wasn't able to share all of them, but man, these people been to war. That's what it felt like. More than any spring classic I've seen, maybe bar one muddy Paris-Roubaix, but it was gnarly. And I think everybody was giving hugs. Everybody was chatting. I got to catch up with a lot of the people I knew from both the men's and women's field, both on the record, off the record. Everyone just has a million stories to share. Even the people who are doing the 50-miler. There's just stories for days. So wow. I think there's a lot of that. I got to do a little less marinating, as I like to say, after my race because I sprang immediately into action working. I maybe had the busiest day of anybody at Unbound because I worked until 1 that night. So it was a big one. It was a big one for sure. I didn't get to quite have the same hangs after. And then I had a nightmare travel session getting home. And I won't go into that, but I definitely needed the recuperations. But I still feel it's these are the best of times. These are the worst of times. Any hour it could change for someone who works at these bike events because they are your extended family, but it is also your job. But then again, I went to San Diego on vacation and I rode bikes. So the job and the vacation aren't that separate, which I think is a good place to be for me. And I think you probably would relate to that experience as well.
Yeah, I just hope no one got E. coli or some horrible, like
I'm afraid to say some people got some diseases I've never
Oh,
heard of, or
yeah.
bugs.
Oh, man.
Yeah, I
Terrifying.
think the havoc that mud and other stuff that was in the mud wreaked on some people's nervous systems and immune systems. I think it's all gonna come out in the wash. But wow, yeah, tough
Yeah,
times in Kansas.
for sure.
All right, so ostensibly, Lisa, we're here to talk about my 1 year review of the Shimano off-road group set. So the new Di2 GRX and XTR
Mhm.
electronic group set. Now, it's kind of hard for me to be the host and ask myself the
Oh, that's
questions.
true.
And it's also tough. It's also tough that we don't have Josh here to scrutinize my choices and my decision making and my rationale, because I think we do have slightly different opinions on this. But Lisa, like, what do you know about that group set? Have you tried it? What have you liked about it? What have you felt like was lacking? Where does that sort of sit in your estimation now that it's been out and about for a year or so?
Yeah, I mean, I have the older GRX group set, and it's mechanical. I'm gonna, like, embody Josh for a minute. I do not like mechanical shifting. I'm gonna say it, and
Interesting. Okay,
everyone can
this
go
is not a
off.
character trait I would expect from you
Yeah.
as a randonneur. You know, that
I
is
know,
like
well,
you are bucking the trends in
uh,
beautiful ways, because you are not your redundant description.
yeah, there you go, yeah. No, I just find that, and again, it's actually because of long distance riding, my hand hurts. Like, if you're
Yeah.
riding for, like, 150 miles, like, shifting that much is annoying, and so my GRX is a mechanical setup, and I'm not a fan. However, also, I do not like one-by systems, and I get it. I know that's a thing. It's like, whatever, but I just maybe I'm like the antithesis of, like, whatever you're describing here, but yeah, I'm excited about that. The the electronic GRX, even though it is one-by, but whatever. It does look really cool.
I can ask you some probing questions, and then maybe
Sure.
we'll be able to piggyback off it. But I want to return to this idea of the difficulty of shifting mechanicals.
Yeah.
I have the same feeling sometimes.
Yeah.
And it comes at the end of a ride when I'm starting to bonk. It's like the number one sign of my bonking is I'll try to shift. And it's like I suddenly lose all the strength in my fingers. And I'm pushing. It doesn't go. It doesn't go. I have to use like my
Yeah.
whole hand to shift.
Oh,
And that
yeah.
happens every once in a while. Do you have that experience? Is it sort of just like a sudden loss of power, a sudden loss of motor
Absolutely.
function?
Dude, I had, like, nerve damage in my hand once. So, every year we do this ride, I call it the Hamilton Diablo double shot, which is like climbing 2 big climbs here in San Francisco, and it's about 119 miles and 11,000 feet. So it's a big day, and the last climb is like a 10% average. It's rude. Anyway, I used my gravel bike once because I was like, "Oh, it'll have better gearing and whatever," and I forgot it was mechanical, and dude, by the end of that, like, my hand was effed. It was just a mess. So all of my bikes are, electronic shifting now, just for that simple reason. I get it. It's a pain in the ass. I really wish that Shimano had a if we're gonna
Shimano.
today's podcast is gonna be
Shimano.
a lesson in me saying that word properly. I'm sorry, everybody. I, like, keep calling it Shimano, so I gotta work on that. But, yeah, no, it is really frustrating that they don't have some sort of battery system. I guess so, okay, first question is this whole new GRX, it sounds like it does have some sort of new setup. I don't know, how did they get around, like, the SRAM patents and all that stuff?
I'm not sure. I'm not sure about that. Because it seems like if they could have done this, they would have done it earlier. And
Yeah.
I know there's like the big battle between the SRAM patents and the Shimano patents. Like, part of the reason why SRAM has went so deep into one by is they never really could crack the front derailleur with Shimano's patents. And I think with things like Bluetooth shifting, the patents have been a little less strong because Campagnolo has already kind of been there. And the design is pretty different in terms of like where the battery is, but I don't understand why. Yeah, I don't really know the nuances, because it really seems like Shimano has been able to sort of recreate a system that is very, very similar to SRAM's in terms
Yeah.
of functionality. And in fact, like, the thesis of my takeaway after riding it for a year is I just really prefer the Shimano system. Besides a couple of different things where I think SRAM wins big, the Shimano system for me, as someone who does actually kind of like mechanical shifting and likes the speed of it in particular for off-road and the ability to jump multiple gears, someone who likes the preciseness of Shimano shifting in general, I found that the rapid shifting and the functionality of like the 2-button paddle system and the fantastic brakes and the ergonomics of the GRX lever kind of like made me feel always like, man, I wish some of these test bikes would come with Shimano. And my personal bike has been on Shimano for a while now, and I'm really happy about it. And it's got to the point where I'm like, okay, we kind of have the tables have turned where with off-road riding and especially gravel riding, like the conventional wisdom is SRAM is the best and Shimano is struggling to keep up. And I kind of feel like I want to push back on that. And I think that Shimano did enough to leapfrog SRAM in a couple of ways to make it where people should probably consider a Shimano off-road group set more than they do, especially if you're thinking about price. That's really, I think, where Shimano comes into its kind of strength because of all the mixing and matching that you can do, and especially mixing and matching consumable parts that are significantly cheaper than SRAM's Explore group set. So
Yeah,
that's kind
true.
of the crux of where I come at, because when it comes down to group sets, it's like I think there's no such thing as like a perfect group set. Like you said, like you prefer 1x to 2x. And I think on the road, I certainly am with you. Like I'm not going to be going to road 1x anytime soon. But off-road, I really do like the simplicity of a 1x. And I do think if you have a prompt shifting speed, it makes up for it. So I've kind of slowly come around to the idea that I think this is the best consumer group set. Is SRAM Red Explorer maybe the optimal for certain gravel races and certain gravel people? Yes, but like if we're just looking holistically, I think the Shimano suite of gravel products is better, which is interesting and different than I think what a lot of people have kind of grown to see as conventional wisdom. Where do you feel like SRAM and Shimano sit in terms of like your estimations? Like, I know it's really reductive to say someone's a Shimano person or a SRAM person, but this has been the battle lines forever.
I mean, I am a Shimano person. It's pretty simple. Yeah. So it's really funny. So I did the I gotta return that bike, but the Trek checkout and it has SRAM on it, and it's just so funny because I kept like shifting the wrong path. You know what I mean? Because I'm like, I'm not used to this 1x thing, and then all of a sudden I'm going the wrong way, and it was super frustrating. And I will say I do think the brakes are way better on the SRAM system. Like, ooh, those Explore brakes were like, ling, is perfect. But yeah, I mean, I think it's just one of those, I don't know. I think a lot of it has evolved past that really classic, it was like a Tour de France stage where some pro rider was like screaming about SRAM.
Yeah. Balk Mollema. Fucking SRAM.
Yeah, it was like
and it became a meme.
Clip.
It became a meme that became a meme page that became that enshrined SRAM to like 5 years of shame in the penalty box.
Yeah,
basically.
it was pretty hilarious. But I mean, yes, obviously it's evolved a lot. I do think the battery system would be really helpful, and it's exciting to see that coming into some of the Shimano group sets. I think maybe to help the listeners, want to walk through, like, it seems like there's 3 different categories.
Yeah.
So we can kind of set the scene.
Yeah, there's 3 different. So Shimano, this is a vibe check, but I think Shimano has been really kind of like dragging its feet into getting into gravel because they don't know what to make of it. They're like, well, if it's a drop bar, then you should run the road drop bar setup. And if it's flat bar, you should run the flat bar setup. And those systems have operated pretty distinctly from one another, where GRX has been sort of this afterthought where it's like, what can we tie together between our technologies? And finally, they sort of have emerged out of that to like more fully embracing gravel in terms of like its own distinct use case and its own distinct system that requires unique attributes. But even still, my favorite of the Shimano gravel group sets probably wouldn't include any GRX components, which is the most interesting thing about it. So I think that the best system, if you want to have the lightest, the highest performance, would be a GRX GRX shifters or if your hands are smaller, Dura shifters. The shifters is a very big thing where the GRX levers,
Huge.
the GRX, it is a very distinct hand position that works for me most of the time. Some days I get on it and I'm like, this doesn't quite feel right, which I've never really understood why my hands change sensations. But like you can bring in even like 105 shifters and it can communicate with the rest of the system. And for me, the XTR mech is like the best. It's the lightest. It has this wide range. It's super, super durable. And then I have a Dura-Ace crankset on with a wolf tooth chainring. So there's like 4 different series of components here like that make this thing work.
Frankenstein.
And that is like, yeah, that's the overwhelming number of pros have that precise setup. They have an XTR mech. Yes. An XTR mech, GRX or Dura-Ace shifters, GRX or Dura-Ace brakes that coincide with the shifters because you can mix and match, but it's better to keep the same sort of consistency in that regard. And then a Dura-Ace crankset, because the Dura-Ace crankset has the most lengths for cranks. It has the best compatibility with 4i power meters, which is another thing you have to bring in if you want precise measurements. And the wolf tooth chainring, which is very smooth and offered in a much wider variety of sizes than the Shimano offerings, even though Shimano has added a couple more. And all of this is like a lot. That's a lot to comprehend. And that's a lot of specific parts to get.
Yeah.
Which feels overwhelming. You can also just get GRX everything and you have basically the same functionality with maybe a smaller chainring, which most people would want anyways. Most people aren't going to want a 46, 48, 50 tooth chainring, besides the pros who are riding at 20 to 25 miles per hour. As someone who finished Unbound like around that pace, like I did appreciate having the wolf tooth 40. I think I ran a 46 tooth chainring. But like the GRX is accessible and equally functional. It's just like you can tinker with everything. You can tinker with everything to meet specific needs, whether it's chainring size, crank lengths, cassette ranges, or shifters preferences to match your hands. Because I don't really know anybody who's like been like, oh yeah, I really hate the Dura-Ace levers. You know, it's always like,
pretty nice.
I don't like the SRAM levers because they're too big. I don't like the GRX levers because my hands go a little numb if they're smaller. Like the ability to add those sort of unoffensive shifters, I think, is really great for the overall system. And also for me, as someone who has bigger hands, the GRX shifters themselves, I find to add a lot of security and a lot of braking power for off-road scenarios. The one thing I think people will be like, but what about, is the fact that there's only 12 speeds compared to the 13-speed SRAM. And this is one place where I'm just... We could go on a big side tangent, but I want to ask you, where are you at with 1x12 speed versus 13 speed? Because I know you like the 2x front chainring setup, but like, and I assume that's because of like a range of gears, but like, where do you feel the importance of having small gaps between gears? Because I've got my feelings about this, but I want to hear yours as someone who's a little more like road oriented, a little more 2x, Team 2x, let's say.
Team 2x. Yes, I want every gear humanly possible. Well, I think it's just, it comes down to what you're riding and where, like, maybe a little bit of fitness too, right? Like if you're riding in some crazy ass, I don't know, insane elevation, maybe you want to have a giant ass dinner plate on the back just so you have that bailout gear. I don't know. It's kind of like, I think a little bit of a personal preference and maybe a little bit of like a truth moment too. Cause I've seen a lot of riders and they're like, yeah, I'm running some sort of crazy ass gear that should not be compatible with climbing and they're just suffering and their knees are exploding and it's not great. So to me, I still would never sacrifice a Shimano setup, I think, because I just know it and I like it. It's a weird thing. I know it's not difficult to figure out how to use a new group set, but for some reason, like my brain just does not compute. Like for the bikes that I test ride, like I'm like, the Shimano would be great. Please set it up that way.
Yeah.
Because it's just like, I think there's a mental load to it. Anytime, like even a race or even recreationally, there's a certain level of mental load. And I know we didn't talk about it yet, but there's also that like UCI screen thing that we can talk about later. But
we'll talk about it. Don't worry. Don't worry, UCI. We're coming for you. Don't worry.
But like, I think it's not something to overlook. Thinking
Yeah.
about how you're going to you want this stuff to be as intuitive as possible. So if you're just more comfortable on one system than another. So long story short, I mean, 12 speed is great. I don't know. Why would you is it really that big a deal?
I think what some people would say would be like, oh yeah, but like I'm having that cognitive load when I'm like between my ideal cadence. And I
Yeah.
think for road that makes sense, but for me, I've always been like, I feel like this idea of chasing 13 speeds on off-road is like you're kind of breezing over like one of the central things that I always feel with one by group sets on off-road is like part of the benefit of it is the big gear jumps, right? It's like when you're off-road, you're changing gradients so drastically.
That's true.
Like you're always going up or down like amounts, not just like fractions. Like
Yeah.
maybe you'll have like a steady grade that ticks one way or the other, but like when I'm on 2x off road, I'm shifting 2 times most of the time when I'm shifting gears. It just is how it happens.
Yeah.
So it's like, I'm okay with having that bigger jump if it gives me a bigger range. And SRAM could have done 13 speed and gone 10 to 51, and they didn't. They went 10 to 46 because they, for some reason, were like, we want 13 speeds, but we don't feel like we need more range. I felt like Shimano creating shifting speed with having a shifting speed system that prioritizes the shifting speed and having a system that allows for a broad range between 10 to 51, it feels like Shimano actually spoke to the needs of off-road without just chasing 13 speeds, because it's like, what do I want when the gradient kicks up 2% from like 8 to 10, in those crunch moments? I want it to go immediately from one gear to a much easier gear.
Yeah, well, that's true.
Right?
Yeah.
Am I crazy?
No.
I don't think I'm crazy.
So as far as like the group set, because you have an article where you talk about this, right? Like,
yeah.
Which I'll be Mike Levy. I haven't read it, so, doing the most here. But like, tell us more about what you tested and like, kind of like your observations on it.
Yeah, so I've done a 2-tiered test. So the first test I did, and this is kind of the long-term test, was on my personal bike. I got a Shimano GRX mashup. So I got the GRX levers and I got an XTR rear mech. And I got a crankset, but I never put it on my bike. So I kept the SRAM crankset I had that had my cork power meter, that had my very specific 167.5 millimeter cranks. And I had a Garbrook chainring, and I have 6 Garbrook chainrings. They're this Polish machining company, and they're brilliant. And they do really good chainrings that can actually work with flat top chains and Shimano chains and KMC chains. And all of them feel very smooth. It's absurd. I don't understand how they do it. Maybe I think the bike companies have been trying to convince us that their stuff is super uncompatible when maybe it's a little more compatible than we thought. So shout out Garbrook. That let me keep my same power meter, my same bottom bracket, which I really love. I have the new Wolf Tooth bottom bracket, and it's been amazing. In Phoenix, we have this really fine dust, and it can really chew away at bottom brackets. Like you get really creaky. These seals have been strong enough where I haven't had a single creak, none, 0 creaks over a year of riding. So I wanted to keep all of this together, right? I like my front crankset. I should say crankset. There's no such thing as a rear crankset. Commenters, I've caught myself. You sometimes comment when I say that. Just crankset. I get it. I got it. But I like having that flexibility of like 6 different chain rings, because I'm a nerd and I can swap them out. No big deal. So I never actually tested a Shimano crankset with it until I got the second bike in to sort of round out the group set. So I've been testing a full GRX build, sort of like stock. So with the GRX, almost stock. I still have a Wolf Tooth chainring. This is the reoccurring problem. The Shimano chainrings have not been up to snuff for a very long time, but it's the actually Otso Wahila R, which is a great bike. I'm going to do a full review of that later in the summer. It's a very great gravel racing bike at a more affordable price point, and part of what makes it affordable is the GRX group set. So I rounded it out with GRX mech, GRX shifters, GRX cranks, just to know what the whole package is like.
So is it the electronic one or is it the mechanical? Okay.
Yes, and actually I have experience on the mechanical as well. I rode that for about a year and then put that on my girlfriend's bike, and she has been riding it again for another year.
Wait, so you're outsourcing your review to your girlfriend?
I'm outsourcing a continued long-term review. I did the long-term for I did a year
Nice.
on the GRX mechanical, did that review. And then I was like, all right, here you go. Tell me what you like. And she's been riding it for another year, basically. So we've gotten multiple genders on that one
I
as
like
well.
that. That's awesome.
But yeah, so shout out longevity, I guess.
Yeah.
There's something to that mechanical. But yeah, so I was able to sort of try a full range of those components to get a sense of what works, what doesn't, what do I like, what do I not like so much about it. And I think from there, I've kind of solidified, like, I love the speed of shifting. It's better than SRAM. I think the brakes SRAM has gotten a lot better with their brakes. That's probably level, I would say. If you have a well-maintained Shimano system, I think potentially the brakes are a little bit better over time because I think they do a little less damage to rotors. I think the SRAM brakes actually don't quite cool down the rotors as well because the brake pads are a little bit different. The structure of them is a little bit different, but that's like deep sort of long-term stuff. They don't have the fins.
The cool fins.
So, but that's kind of like, I would say, a moot point. Like the speed, Shimano. Range, also Shimano. Because we're not comparing the SRAM Mullet, I don't think. Because I don't think the SRAM Mullet's even slower than the SRAM Explorer. So let's not bring that into the equation just now. SRAM definitely is a better crankset situation. They have a power meter, which is very beneficial. They have a wide range of chainring sizes. So SRAM gets the better cranksets. I personally like the hood shape of the GRX, and I think other people also like the hood shape of Dura-Ace more than the SRAM sort of one size fits all. Even though that was a big step up from them, I think there still are issues with that. I never have really felt comfortable on those shifters, so I view that point to Shimano. And then lastly, consumable parts. SRAM is just so not affordable. Their cassettes are not affordable. Like their chains are not, I mean, their chains can be affordable, but like you do feel the differences in the price levels. So I like the consumable parts of Shimano too. And that overall picture, I think for me, points it in the direction of Shimano, especially if you're just looking at sort of like stock build options. It's like GRX, SRAM. What are we looking at?
So wait, what kind of cost difference are we talking about?
Well, Shimano does have the ability to scale higher up. I'm going to look this up because I don't want to get this incorrect.
Well,
but
yeah, I didn't mean
Shimano
to put you on the
has
spot.
more of a scaling opportunity to spend if you want higher end pricing for like an XTR cassette.
Got it.
But SRAM sort of locks you into specific ratios and specific components. So I'm going to just look up for the sake of arguments some pricing here. How much should we value price for group sets? Do you feel like, where do you feel like you are in terms of like assessing the cost of some of these group sets that are just like, if we're talking about mechanical versus electronic, like this is like a huge jump in price.
Yeah. As a buddy of mine calls it, Dura-Ace. It is, yeah, I think it's a little, it's tough because I feel like in a way group sets kind of gaslight you a bit, right? You're like, oh, well, I need to have the best. And a lot of times, if you think of it like a car company, Toyota, like that's a car that will drive forever, right? It is just going to work and it's going to get you where you need to go. And I feel like, you know, granted, I'm talking road group sets here, but like 105 is the Toyota of group sets. Like that shit will work forever and there's nothing wrong with it. And to be honest, maybe this is a hot take, but I'd say like 80, maybe even 90% of riders won't even notice the shifting speeds that much, right? Like I don't think, unless you ride a lot, you possibly won't even tell the difference between some of these, like Ultegra Dura-Ace, guys, that's real thin. Like that is a very small margin. And I'm not trying to say it like a flex, but I ride like a lot of miles a year. I can tell the difference in the speed, but I don't know that the cost is worth it for most cyclists out there. Like you could take that cost and maybe invest in better wheels or something else on your bike. So it's a bummer that some of this stuff is put on such a pedestal when I think the margins are actually really small.
Yeah, and I think ultimately that's what I love about Shimano is it's like it feels easier to mix and match.
Yeah.
And at the baseline also, like if we just compare on the high end, like here's the big deal, like cassettes. These things wear out. There's nothing you could do about it. The cost of a SRAM, of a new MSRP SRAM Explorer cassette is $660.
What? Holy
right?
shit. Wow.
And Shimano's is expensive too. The XTR 10 to 51 is $495, which is expensive for a component you probably have to replace at the very least once a year, probably twice a year if you're riding a lot. If you want a maximum performance, if you are going to XTR, it's like, why would you go to that maximum performance level? You aren't
Wait,
going to
once a
replace
year?
it. But
holy shit, we're really running.
like
Zero.
this is kind of what they would recommend, and we're talking about a delta of price of like $170 USD.
But
that's a
still
lot,
money.
right?
I mean, yeah,
That's a lot. So, and we could get into the chain rings and all that stuff. So I think price is one of those things that's really hard to talk on a podcast because we could just be out here naming numbers, and I'll get into it into the article. Obviously, that'll be a big component of dissecting what the group set is, and that'll be linked below. But like, I think it is worth mentioning that like with group sets, like how could you not talk about value, right? And I think SRAM has been pushing the envelope on what that value proposition is, and Shimano's been going with them, but to a certain extent, I think the favor is still like Shimano still has that, especially because like, yeah, GRX levers might be really expensive, but 105 levers are not, and they sync up just fine and they feel great. I have a road bike I'm looking at right over here that I ride all the time with 105 shifters where every other Shimano component is replaced. I've got a Dura-Ace crankset, I've got an Ultegra rear mech and a rear cassette, because that's where you feel the cost. But like the shifter weighs more, but gets the job done and it feels nice on my hands. So
that's curious.
That level
actually.
of flexibility, I think, is it's just nice to have. And yeah, SRAM also has flexibility.
Yeah.
And I would say I would recommend to anybody, don't get SRAM Red, just go to the next level down, because it's basically the same functionality, just heavier, right?
Because if you're talking like, because at the end of the day, obviously there's a performance increase, I get that, but also a weight like penalty, you could say. At the same time though, like I'd be curious if you could save weight in other places. You know what I mean?
Yes.
Like,
well, for sure.
But
yes.
like as a cost per gram analysis, I know that we haven't done that math, but like in my head, I'm just like, man, saving like, I don't know, a couple 100 grams off your group set is nothing compared to what, I don't know, a better set of wheels or something else, even like a lighter cockpit or something.
Yeah, I would agree. And like there are some benefits to having the higher end in terms of with Shimano, like Dura-Ace cranksets do come in more sizes, for instance.
Yeah, that's fair. Yeah.
And you do have access, like if you did a 105 crank, you couldn't put a wolf tooth chainring on it, which is a bit of a bummer. And I spoke to Wolf Tooth about it, and they're like, well, we have some things coming, but we don't really know what the market is for that. We know what the market is for the Dura-Ace, because that's basically like we're doing the pro builds. We are facilitating chain rings for pro riders. So if you want a pro spec, then of course you would look for us. But like for other people mixing and matching with Shimano, we don't really know what the market is. But like I do think that would be a worthy upgrade if you do want to get hyper specific with your crank lengths, because that is something you can do now with the way we're looking at bike fits. Like 167.5, I joke about it being this really hipster choice I made, but it's also the right choice. Like it is backed up by stuff where it's like, yeah, I'm in the range where I could go to a 165 or 170, and like pushing it to 167.5 has felt great.
Yeah.
And I go to 170 crank sometimes, and it feels just a little different. And I kind of like my bike at home. So it's like, there are benefits to have. And I think Shimano has made it scalable, because it's good to be scalable. You know,
gosh, how
it's
tall
good
are
to
you?
have added things, but I'm 6 foot, but I don't have very long legs.
Oh, okay. Because I'm like, I'm on a 165. So
the problem with me is I have really bad hips. I can't have a very aggressive hip angle, but I still want to be aerodynamic. So that I'm like the poster boy for like people who should be riding smaller cranks who aren't. It's almost more important. Like your flexibility is almost more important than your height when it comes to things like
that makes
crank
sense.
length. Because if you're really flexible, like it might not be better for you to have shorter cranks. You might benefit from like a little more leverage.
That's so funny, the hipster move, because I guess what when Tade went to 165, everyone like lost their mind.
Well, yeah, I think he went to 160 actually, or
Jesus.
he tinkered with it. I'm someone's going to correct me, but yeah, he lowered it, and that was like the year he really like stepped up, and everyone was like, "God, it must be the crank lengths," and it's like, yeah, it's a little bit the crank lengths, but like maybe the thought that went into the crank lengths also was thought that went in elsewhere. So
Maybe, eh?
you know, it's like
God.
it's causation versus like a corollary. So yeah, I think we could bang on about the group sets on
Yeah.
and on.
Well, I
But
was gonna
I think the
say-
end of the day, they're
Yeah.
both very good. And for me, the thing I learned more, it's like I might prefer SRAM or Shimano. Someone easily could prefer SRAM because they might really value power meters, and they might really value having sort of 13 speeds on the rear because they're riding a lot of road also. And I see that, and I respect that. And I think it's just great that we have two companies that are functioning at this level. And I hope we can have a third at some point. That's, I think, the broader discussion is I've really wanted there to be a third way. And I'm trying to get on the new Campagnolo record group set because it's a lot more affordable. It's like the super record just wasn't in the same conversation because of that value proposition, right? The record is much more affordable. Now, will I be able to test it or will I not? Let's see. Shimano or Campagnolo, if you're listening, I would really like to try your group set.
There you go.
Please let me
hook 'em
try
up.
it. Yeah. I really would like to.
Does it still have, am I showing my age? Does it still have the campy click? Like, does it, like that to me?
I don't think so. I don't think so.
Oh, God.
I have not ridden it, so I cannot tell you, Lisa, looking at you, Campagnolo. But I think they have gone to the beeps and the boops, as I say.
Oh,
but like
lame.
you said, you like the beeps and the boops. So you're part of the problem,
fine.
Lisa.
Yeah,
You're an
no,
enabler.
That's true. Yeah. It's all
it
my
does
fault.
look nice
It's
though.
all my
Like
fault.
I do kind of like it has like this different aesthetic. It's not Campagnolo's like polished metal look, but it is nice and different. And I tried TRP last year and I really liked it initially, but it's the TRP classified group set did not have the durability it needed to compete, which was a bummer. I know Josh and I have both ridden that. And it's currently sitting in a box in my shelf, and it could be put on a bike, but like I'm not rushing to do that because of durability associated with the rear derailleur, which I think is one last thing I would like to say about the Shimano.
Yeah.
The battery is in a much smarter place than SRAM. So I had an issue with the battery on a SRAM GX derailleur where it basically bricked itself because dirt and grime got into the connectors between the battery and the mech. And it got to a point where it just wouldn't shift. And SRAM did not warranty it because they were like, this appears that you transported the bike or did something with the bike that allowed dirt to get in. And I was like, no, I didn't. I transported the bike with the block. I rode it with the battery.
Yeah.
It just got dirty because I was riding it at things like Unbound. And the battery is a little loose and it's exposed to the elements. And what do you want me to do? Not ride it in the dirt?
Because it's underneath, right?
Yeah, the Shimano system is fully tucked into basically the middle of the mech. So it's surrounded by all this mechanism, and it's not getting blasted from under or over, which is kind of where the SRAM battery is like exposed on the top. It's a lot harder to take out.
Yeah.
But I mean, the battery life is, it goes for a very long time. So I remove it once every 2 weeks.
Is it like the same as the road group set? Like you can get like 1,000 kilometers or something?
Yeah, it's a long time.
Okay.
I don't know the specifics, but anecdotally, it feels longer than SRAM.
Wow.
But that also could be the fact that I'm riding them differently. I'm riding more like like I'm riding so many different bikes now. It's hard for me to be like, how long did this last me? You know, I've been on 6 different bikes in the last 2 weeks. I don't know.
So if you looked in your crystal ball, is it like something that they'll start to bring to other group sets in the lineup? Or?
Yeah, they've got to. I mean, they've got to. Like we're already seeing road bikes. Well, we've seen one road bike made that did not have Di2 compatibility for 2x. So the Allied Echo was made without ports for the cable that goes between the front mech and the rear mech for Shimano, which felt very significant to me. It felt like a poor choice to me, frankly, because why would you make a road bike that is not able to be used? Like you can't use the main road group set that is on the world tour with that bike.
Yeah.
But on the other hand, I think it shaded something to me, whereas one, SRAM is becoming very, very popular in the United States to the point where it's definitely outpacing Shimano. And two, we're probably going to see that tech trickle into road, because you'd imagine you'd want the simplicity of just localized battery controlling the front and the rear, because SRAM has proved that it's just elegant and easy when it's that way.
So it gets a thumbs up.
When we get there, I don't know. Huge thumbs up for me. I'm still riding it. I'm going to be riding it for a long time. I kind of hope they don't change to 13 speed. That's the rumor. It's probably going to happen. I don't know why you complicate it. Like, this feels like as good of a group set as I would want. Just make it faster, just make it faster. That's kind of where I'm at.
Maybe the theme lately is bike companies doing stuff that nobody wants, like 32-inch wheels and 15 gear.
We almost made it through an episode without talking about 32-inch wheels.
I every time it's like, what grinds my gears? 32-inch wheels. Anyway, do you want to talk about crazy computers?
Let's talk about that. Because I'm interested in that. And there was also pockets grouped into this discussion, but let's start with the computers. So the UCI concluded that they needed to have a computer size limit. Mm-hmm. And they needed that because they wanted to minimize the cognitive load for riders in races. So the idea is, if you have too big of a screen, you have too much information, and that's causing more of a cognitive load that disrupts a rider's focus. And they also, and this is a key distinction, used the largest computer that already exists on the market as the parameters for what a computer that is too big is. So they're like, the limit to our computer is what the Wahoo Ace is, because it's the biggest, and what are you going to do?
It was
We're not going to make a computer illegal.
The UCI rules was 1 millimeter bigger than the Wahoo Ace, which I definitely got a chuckle out of. That was hilarious.
I mean, look, actually, let me give you the question.
Okay.
Comparative to other UCI tech regulations that may or may not have been adopted, where does this sit in terms of the ridiculousness scale?
It seems so nanny state. Like, we're going to police the amount of data you can, unless there's some sort of, I don't know, does Visma have some secret data screen that no one else has? I thought this whole cognitive load thing was a lot of BS. Unless, do we have a lot of instances where pro riders are screwing around on their computer and not paying attention? To me, wouldn't you want, sometimes you want the numbers to be as big as humanly possible so you don't have to squint to look at this thing. So a bigger screen means you can just read it easier. I don't know. I was like, is something else is going on here? Because something in the milk ain't clean, as my sister says.
Yeah. I'm of two minds of this, because it's like, if you didn't tell me any of the other stuff the UCI did, I'd be like, okay, maybe, sure. We're not making products illegal, which was the big issue with them trying to limit gear sizes, which I fundamentally disagreed with on so many levels. But the computer size, okay, yeah, computers are pretty big. I think we're good. I don't think we need to make them bigger for racing.
Well, dude, that Wahoo Ace is like an iPhone. That is huge.
You're basically operating at a point now where you could put an iPhone 8 on a quad lock and be fine. So, this one in a vacuum is fine. But all of this together is the UCI clearly is trying to create an environment in its legal structure where blame is perpetually put on the riders, even if they don't frame it that way. Citing cognitive load, and we need to manage the cognitive load, is the same kind of stuff they would say about race radios. It's they're blabbing in their ear, telling them to go to the front when there's an obstacle coming. Well, let's take the thing out of their ear. It's then they're going to be unaware of things coming that the race is going to just throw in there, because the race is we need to go through this town.
Yeah.
So 7 roundabouts. Yes, let's do it. So it just feels a little blame shifty, where you're oh, these cyclists, they can't handle the cognitive load of an iPad on their handlebars. It's well, I don't even know if they're going to do that to begin with.
Yeah.
And even if they did, like a bigger screen might even make the cognitive load less because you're not squinting, you're not looking at the screen for as long because you can immediately see like, okay, yeah, turn in 200 meters. Because that's essential information in this day and age in the Peloton, where it's like if one person has turn-by-turn navigation, everyone needs it because you got to be on the same page as your peers, or else you run into things where it's like one person doesn't have it, and then you're like, oh shit,
wasn't
I
there
didn't know that turn was coming.
Dude, the race there where like half the women, was it the Strada Bianchi? Like
Yes.
the women's group went the wrong way because the car went the wrong way. Like, dude, that's madness. So yeah, I'm like, you know, not to be conspiracy theory, but like what happened that all of a sudden now this is a thing? Like, it just came out of nowhere. It's not like some rider had a crazy ass crash, unless I didn't notice it and didn't know about it. But it seems like a very odd thing. Now, the next ruling. Oh, sorry. Go ahead.
Yeah, I think I know where this comes from, and I haven't done any reporting on this because it's not really my beat. But like, I feel like there's this organization, there's like this group of people. It could be one person in the UCI who's charged with looking at technology and looking at ways in which like the UCI as the governing body can regulate technology perpetually and make sure there's safeguards around it becoming out of control. And I think that's good.
Yeah.
At its heart.
Yeah.
But I also think the UCI isn't doing enough outside of that to prevent ridiculous safety outcomes. Like the end of the stage 7 of the Giro, I think it was stage 7, finishing in Naples and finishing with a hairpin turn on Congress. And it's like, oh yes, well, this will be fine unless it rains. It's like, what happens in Italy? It fucking rains. What do you want? Yeah. So of course that becomes this fucking, I'm cursing too much, but it becomes this absolute flustercluck.
Yeah.
And it's like, wow, that's not the rider's fault at all. You see them slow down to a crawl and they still get wiped out because like at the end of the day, courses are the thing that I think determines so much about the safety outcomes of the races, not what happens between the racers, unless like, because there's going to be a certain amount of crashing. I don't think the crashing is caused by the size of the computers. In fact, it could be mitigated by it, but the UCI, I think, has an obligation to regulate technology and also regulate the courses. And they seem very keen on regulating technology and very uninterested in regulating courses is kind of the way I look at it. And I think those sentiments are echoed in the pro Peloton quite extensively from who I know and who I've talked to. That being said, the UCI could be doing everything right and we could be wrong.
That's true. 10 million%. I mean, I don't know that we're the governing body of anything over here.
We're not the governing body of anything. We just talk about 32-inch tires, 32-inch wheels, 32-inch wheels. That's all we talk about.
Can we make like a bingo card? So every podcast, when we do mention 32, like maybe you could get a prize, like if you collect them all, you know, because it's my most favorite hated topic. Yeah. Anyway, the other part of the other thing in the UCI, they banned the front
pockets. No front pockets.
I totally get, because actually Iron Man a long time ago banned riders putting bottles down the front of their jersey. So
I kind of thought this was already illegal. Not gonna lie, because like the UCI has a lot of kit rules that you don't know about. EF made a whole kit designed around the kit rules where they made a kit that was very, like you could see the blueprint throughout the kit of like how it's all in line with the UCI specifications about how it looks, where the pockets are placed, all this stuff.
Wow. That's cool.
All of that is regulated by the UCI because UCI has control over like the colors different teams wear. Like you can't wear pink in the Giro and like all this stuff is like, well, it's all well and good, except they do allow like half the teams to look the same, which bugs me. But like they do have these things, and I do know it's illegal to have something that changes the morphology of your body.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Like you can't have a bladder that's empty, that's inflated in your back to create a ridge that boosts your aerodynamics.
That makes sense.
Where there was gray areas, like where are you putting your food? Because it's like food goes in your back, your radio goes in your back. And then some people were like, what about food in the front? What about radio in the front? And radio in the front makes a lot of sense because if you crash on your back and there's a brick on your back, that might be bad. And if you slide chest down, it also might be bad. But like, if you think about the physics of crashes, blah, 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 blah. Long story short, they were like, we saw people with nutrition in their front and we didn't see them eat it.
Oh, that's what
because
happened.
it would be hard to reach down the front
Yeah,
and eat in a race scenario.
interesting.
Therefore, they're not putting it there to eat. They're putting it there for aerodynamic advantage.
Oh, shit.
So basically, like, even though it's food, it's not being treated as food because food should only be allowed to be a manipulator of your body position if it's ultimately going to be eaten. And people weren't eating it, and they concluded through
Okay.
oversight that the riders wouldn't eat it. And I don't know how they did that. I don't know where that came from. I don't know who made that choice. But that was kind of where they came to when they were like, okay, let's just ban pockets on the front except for radios.
Okay.
And require everyone to carry food in the back.
Because that was going to be my next question. Like, because the domestique, they're going to like put everything everywhere. So, I mean, obviously, I guess that's okay, but you just can't be sustained with
You are
stuff.
seeing less of that, though. Like, you are seeing less of the domestiques putting a bunch of bottles all over their pockets because the UCI has relaxed a lot of the road. Or I don't know if the UCI is responsible for this or teams have just been like, look, it's hard to position most of the time.
Yeah.
We're not going to send one rider back. We're just going to have a minivan leapfrogging, handing up bottles from the side of the road. That's where we have gone to. You see less of the people with the bottles stuck in their jersey.
Yeah.
We'll still see it in the tour. It still exists. And I'm sure the UCI will just selectively apply their rule, which they have been known to do. Some of their rules seem to exist just to be used when they want to use them. But at the end of the day, like that's sport. Sometimes the NBA doesn't always make the calls because sometimes if you called every rule, you'd have a whistle every 30 seconds.
Yeah, there you go.
It's the nature of sport is sometimes there's gray area, and we love to pile on the UCI because a lot of things they do don't make a lot of sense from the outside. This one, the pockets, they are allowed to make legislation around kits. That's fine. That to me feels like them doing their job, whereas the litigating computers is a little more, okay, what are we doing here with this technological regulation to create a safety outcome that may or may not exist?
Yeah, no, it makes sense. And I think before we shut her down, we're going to shout out 2 women who are doing some exceptional riding. The first being Lael Wilcox. If you didn't notice, she started her around the world record, which is, she left, I think, Monday. She left on Monday at like 5 a.m. Chicago time. So that's really exciting to watch. Are you following? Are you a dot watcher?
I'm a dot watcher.
Oh,
I'm
nice.
dot watching.
Nice.
We are buzz buddies. Both got buzz cuts.
Oh yeah, that's true. Yeah, you're all arrow.
Yeah, Lael Wilcox is doing it again. She's, I mean, some point she's going to run out of stuff to do, you know?
Never. That woman is the Energizer Bunny of like of riding. It's incredible. So anyway, so that's super exciting. And then at the same time, Dr. Sarah Ruggins, I believe is her last name, and she is doing a endurance effort the length of Europe. So she started down south. Was it France or Spain? Again,
Spain.
Our crack.
You'd imagine it would be Spain.
It makes
to Norway,
sense, eh?
right? Because that is
something like that.
That is the official crossing.
It was one way north.
The European divide, I think is what it's called, right? Yes.
Our crack research team over here is just batting 1,000. So she's starting that. Anyways, she's on her way and she's got a whole support team and absolutely crushing. So there's 2 women you can follow that are doing some crazy stuff. Right now.
Hey, when the parents are gone, you can't expect the kids to bat 1,000.
Hey, guys,
you know? What are you going to do?
We actually had to start this twice just to figure out how to turn it on. So to be fair.
No one told me how to turn on the thing. No one told me how to make the thing go record. We
so
joke.
Good.
Hey, we joke, but hey, if you're still listening to this, that means
that's true. Thanks, you're a real one.
Good job.
Yeah.
Yes, thank you, Lisa.
No, this is
for
great.
joining me.
Thanks.
Thank you, listeners. Thank you, watchers.
Yeah.
Don't forget to leave a comment or a question if you have it. Don't forget to subscribe on Spotify or YouTube if you are interested. On our YouTube especially, I did a ton of videos from Unbound. There's a lot on there. I think over an hour of footage, or not over an hour of videos, from bike checks to dissecting what it means to ride 350 miles in the XL, to a review of the Crux. There'll be another follow-up video coming at some point. It might be out now when you hear this. It might not, but we have a lot on the YouTube, so it's not just the podcast. But thank you for listening. Thank you for watching. Lisa, thank you for joining.
Yeah. Thanks for having me.
See you guys next week.
Bye.